Chapter 1, Parallels. Narrated by Shandora Warren. Music by Epidemic Sound. I want to tell the truth. My life. I can guarantee it wasn't like you'd imagine. If you had to guess, you probably assumed that I grew up on the wrong side of the tracks, or in some crazy dysfunctional space. It wasn't like that. I mean, not really. I didn't grow up in lack. I wasn't dirt poor like some other people who took the same path. My life went off course for one reason and one reason only. I wanted it to. For clarity, I didn't intend for things to happen the way they did. When I say that I wanted my life to go that way, I only mean that I never did anything to stop it. In fact, I had endless possibilities. I made my life much harder than it had to be. Life was so good in the beginning. I was the youngest of 3 children. I had 2 older sisters. And when I say they were older, I mean they were older. My sisters were 25 and 27 when I was born. They had both attended college, gotten married, and moved out of state before I even came into this world. My parents were 47 and 50 when I was born. I guess it's safe to say that I probably wasn't planned. Even still, my mother always told me that I was her favorite surprise. When things were at their peak, she probably thought I was her worst nightmare. It never had to be that way. I never had to be that way. I was born in 1968 to 2 loving parents. When I was 5, my father brought home a Siberian husky. He named him Lobo. Lobo. That's a crazy name, right? Why was our dog named Lobo? The subject may seem to be a bit out of left field, but it's relevant to the story, I promise. Against my better judgment, I once asked my father why he named our dog Lobo. I don't know why I did it. The smallest questions could easily turn into 2-hour conversations with him. But I asked, and my father did what he always did. He explained. There's something that you have to understand about my father. He was heavily into some things that most black men weren't into at the time. History and documentaries. Because of that, he was knowledgeable about all types of subjects. Unfortunately, he always wanted to discuss them. A lot. I only wanted to play outside with my friends that day. But I asked, Daddy, why'd you name our dog Lobo? My father took me onto the porch to explain, all while I watched my friends ride by on their bikes. He said, life is full of parallels, son, especially when it comes to the animal world. If you look hard enough, the symbolism is everywhere. A few years ago, I watched this film called The Legend of Lobo. Lobo was a North American Mexican gray wolf that lived in New Mexico. Lobo was a gigantic wolf, and he led a pack of other wolves that were fiercely devoted to him. But the issue was the difficulty of leadership. When settlers came and started overhunting the bison and elk, the wolves were being depleted of their natural prey. As a result, they started preying on the settlers' livestock. This was a problem for the settlers, of course, so they set out to annihilate Lobo. They didn't realize, however, that Lobo had been orphaned at an early age due to the murders of his parents. Being on his own, he became very strategic in learning the ways of human hunters. The Rangers tried to kill Lobo and his pack by poisoning critter carcasses. The wolves removed the poisoned pieces and threw them aside, eating the rest. They tried to kill the wolves with traps, but those efforts also failed. Feeling hopeless, they hired a bounty hunter to come and kill Lobo for good. The bounty hunter poisoned 5 baits and covered the traces of human scent. He placed them out in Lobo's territory. The next day, all the baits were gone, and he assumed Lobo would be dead. He later found the 5 baits in a pile. They were covered by wolf feces to show Lobo's contempt and mockery. The bounty hunter then bought specialized traps and concealed them. He later found Lobo's tracks leading from trap to trap, exposing each. 4 months into a task that was initially supposed to take 2 weeks, the bounty hunter became frustrated. But while he was out in the woods, he noticed Lobo's tracks following a set of smaller tracks. The bounty hunter realized Lobo's weakness, his mate, a white wolf named Blanca. Realizing that, the bounty hunter came up with a new plan. He set out some bait in a narrow passage and successfully trapped Blanca. When the hunters arrived, They found Lobo by her side, whining. Lobo escaped, but they heard his howls for several days after, signifying his grief. To trap Lobo, the bounty hunter took Blanca's carcass to his ranch. Lobo's grief had taken over and dulled his sense of caution, so he followed Blanca's scent to the ranch, where he was also caught. Although all 4 of Lobo's limbs were caught in the trap, he stood tall and defiantly howled. The bounty hunter was touched by Lobo's bravery and loyalty to Blanca, so he couldn't kill him. He allowed Lobo to remain muzzled at his ranch. Lobo refused to eat and quietly gazed over his former stomping ground. He died that night, seemingly of a broken heart. Being a child, I still didn't fully understand. "I don't get it, Daddy," I said. So he explained, "Buddy, our Lobo is a Siberian Husky, a very close relative to the gray wolf. If you look at him, the resemblance is crazy. But the relevance is much deeper than that. There are a few lessons in this story. 1. Lobo was orphaned at an early age. He had to learn the ways of the hunters to survive and outsmart them. We can learn a lesson from that. We must always use the negatives in our lives to figure out how to make ourselves better. Done the right way, we can overpower people who were intended to be our oppressors. 2. The settlers killed the wolves' natural prey, so Lobo decided to kill their livestock for food. That decision was about survival, but it led to retaliation from the humans and the death of many wolves. From that, we learned that leadership is difficult. Sometimes we must make difficult decisions that won't work out well for everyone, but as the leaders, we have to stand in those decisions to protect what we've built. 3. After years of avoiding capture, Lobo was finally caught when he visited Blanca's body. The bounty hunter was intuitive enough to realize that she would be his weakness. From that, we learned 2 lessons. First, regardless of how cunning you are, we all have a weakness. The trick is to never expose it. The second lesson, never let a woman be your downfall. I never made it out to play that day, but I learned some very valuable lessons. Or did I? Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to follow Shinny Tells a Story on Facebook and Instagram. I'd love to hear from you. If you'd like to purchase books by Shandora Warren, they're all available on Amazon in ebook, paperback, and some in hardback formats. Please like and follow this podcast and share it with your family, friends, and frenemies, because all relationships matter, even the toxic ones. Thanks so much for helping me to create the world that I want to see. This is my 10th book. Oh yeah, you're welcome.